All right, let's dive into cybersecurity today.
A deep dive.
Yeah, a deep dive. It's exciting. We're going to do something a little different today.
Okay.
And we're going to be working from some interesting source material.
Okay.
So we have this kind of a simulated conversation between somebody who is interested in getting into cybersecurity and an experienced cybersecurity manager, like playing the role of a mentor.
Gotcha.
So it's like we get to listen in on this mentorship session, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So we get to kind of like learn from someone else's journey into cybersecurity.
Exactly. It's like eavesdropping on a masterclass in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the mentor kind of kicks it off by asking about the listener's background, their experience.
Okay.
And it turns out they've taken a few, basic IT courses, know a little HTML,
Mm-hmm.
and they even set up their own home router.
That's great. I mean, that actually shows a lot of valuable skills already. A lot of people don't realize that, but just even like being comfortable with technology.
Yeah.
That willingness to like troubleshoot things, that's huge in cybersecurity.
Absolutely. And it gets even more interesting because the listener mentions that they're kind of drawn to cybersecurity because of that thrill of like outsmarting hackers.
Mm-hmm.
They even compared it to solving complex puzzles, which, I mean, no, you probably relate to that.
Yeah. No, I love Russell.
Yeah, and a knack for like pattern recognition, so.
It's true that analytical mindset, it's so crucial.
Yeah.
Technical skills, yes, they're important, but without that kind of like drive to understand how things work and how they anticipate threats, you won't really get very far in cyber.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like playing chess.
Yeah.
You have to be thinking like several steps ahead.
Totally. Yeah. So how does the mentor recommend turning this interest into an actual career path?
So they give some really great advice. And they start with the basics.
Yeah.
Sticking with that IT major,
Yeah.
It's a solid foundation.
Okay.
But to really specialize, they suggest diving deeper into like Linux and SQL.
Okay.
These are languages you'll be using all the time in cyber.
Okay, so those are the must-haves.
Yeah.
What about certifications? You always hear about those.
Oh, the mentor brought those up too.
Yeah.
So they suggested starting with CompTIA Security Plus.
Okay.
Think of it as your cybersecurity driver's license.
Okay.
It's the gold standard for entry-level roles, and down the line, like aiming for more advanced certifications like CISSP or CEH, those show a real commitment to the field.
Okay, so you got the education, you get the certifications, but then what? How do you actually like get your foot in the door?
Yeah, so practical experience is key.
Okay.
And the mentor really highlights that. Internships, they're fantastic. Way to get hands-on experience in entry-level positions like, security analyst or even like IT support technician.
Yeah.
Those can provide valuable, like real-world skills. You'll be applying those puzzle-solving abilities you mentioned to real problems.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of real-world tools, the mentor mentions Splunk and Wireshark, which are two things that I've heard whispered about, in the cybersecurity world.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell us about these mysterious programs?
Well, they are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So Splunk is like a powerful detective for your network.
Okay.
It's used for SIEM.
SIEM.
Which stands for Security Information and Event Management.
Okay.
So think of it as like a central hub that collects data from all your devices, your servers, your applications, everything.
Wow.
And then it analyzes all that data, right, to find patterns and anomalies that could indicate a security threat.
Oh, so it's like having an AI bodyguard for your network constantly like on the lookout.
Yeah, like constantly watching everything.
Wow, so what about Wireshark?
Wireshark is more like a microscope.
Okay.
It's a free open source tool that lets you capture and analyze network traffic, breaking it down into these like tiny packets of data.
Okay.
So it's incredibly useful for troubleshooting network problems, but it's also a secret weapon for security analysis.
Oh.
You can actually spot suspicious activity.
Oh, wow.
Hidden within that stream of data.
Okay, so Splunk gives you the big picture.
Yeah.
And Wireshark lets you zoom in on the details.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so I know the listener was really curious about what a typical day actually looks like for a cybersecurity specialist. What kind of tasks do they handle?
Yeah, so it's a fast-paced, ever-changing environment.
Yeah.
So you would be monitoring network traffic and system logs for anything out of the ordinary. Responding to any incidents that pop up and constantly scanning for vulnerabilities and applying patches, plugging those security holes.
It sounds pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
But also kind of exciting in a way.
Oh, definitely. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But if you thrive on challenges and, solving problems, it can be an incredibly rewarding career.
Yeah, and I remember the listener specifically asked about network protocols, and they seemed a little confused about why those are so important for cybersecurity specialists.
Yeah, it's because network protocols are basically like the languages computers use to communicate,
Yeah.
If you don't understand the language, how can you tell if someone is speaking gibberish or trying to trick you?
Right. So you need to be fluent in computer speak to spot the bad guys.
Yes.
Gotcha. Can you give us like an example of how this actually works in practice?
Sure. So imagine you're loading a web page.
Okay.
Right. Your browser uses a protocol called HTTP to send a request to the server, which then sends back the web page data using the same protocol. But these messages don't just magically fly across the internet.
Yeah.
They rely on other protocols like TCP and IP to ensure that they get delivered correctly.
Oh, so it's a whole chain of communication happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
And each protocol has its own specific role to play.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So understanding these protocols allows cybersecurity specialists to, monitor traffic, secure transmissions, and troubleshoot problems when they arise.
Yeah. That makes sense. So that brings us to another topic the listener was curious about, which is vulnerability scans.
Okay.
So what exactly are they looking for, and how do they go about patching those weaknesses?
So think of vulnerability scans like a thorough home inspection.
Okay.
They're looking for any cracks in the foundation.
Right.
Loose wiring, faulty locks.
Yeah.
That could make your house vulnerable to to burglars.
So in this case, the burglars are the hackers trying to break into our systems.
Yes.
What kind of weaknesses do these scans actually uncover?
All sorts. It could be something as simple as a misconfiguration, like a server setting that accidentally leaves sensitive data exposed.
Oh, okay.
Or it could be outdated software with known vulnerabilities that haven't been patched yet.
Right, and I bet those zero-day vulnerabilities you mentioned earlier are the real nightmares, huh?
Absolutely. Those are the unknowns, vulnerabilities that haven't even been discovered by the software vendors yet.
Right.
It's a constant race against time to find and fix those before the attackers exploit them.
Wow, okay. And speaking of things that need clarification, the listener also asked about APIs.
Yeah.
They remembered the term, but needed a reminder of what exactly they do.
Yeah, so APIs are like bridges that connect different applications.
Okay.
Let's say you're using a travel app to book a flight. That app might use an API to connect to the airline system and retrieve flight information or make a booking.
Okay, so APIs are what make those seamless interactions between different apps possible.
Yeah.
But they can also be a security risk, right?
Oh, absolutely. Unsecured APIs are a prime target for attackers because the physical servers, the networking, the software that runs the cloud platform.
Okay.
They're also responsible for the security of their own services, like storage, databases, and computing power.
Okay, so what's the customer responsible for?
So the customer is responsible for securing everything they put into the cloud.
Gotcha.
Right. That includes their own data, their applications, their configurations, basically anything they control within that cloud environment.
Okay, so it's like a partnership. Both parties have a role to play.
Exactly. And understanding that shared responsibility is crucial for building a strong security posture in the cloud.
Yeah, that makes sense. To bring this all to life, the listener asked for a real-world example of a recent cyber attack. And the mentor chose to discuss the attack on American Water, which thankfully only disrupted billing systems and didn't affect the actual water supply.
Yeah, this attack really highlights the importance of staying vigilant.
Yeah.
Even large organizations with seemingly strong security measures can be targeted.
Right.
And in this case, the attackers exploited a combination of vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Including outdated software and misconfigurations in their network.
Oh, so it was like a chain of weaknesses that created an opening for the attackers.
Right.
What did American Water do to mitigate the attack?
Well, their security team acted swiftly.
Okay.
Which is crucial in these situations.
Yeah.
They immediately isolated the compromised systems.
Right.
To prevent further spread of the attack, then activated their incident response plan.
Okay.
Which is like, a playbook for handling these events.
So they had a plan in place.
Yes.
And were ready to execute it.
Yes.
That probably made a huge difference.
Absolutely. They also focused on patching those vulnerabilities that had been exploited, right?
Yeah.
Making sure all their systems were up to date. And while all this was happening, their cybersecurity specialists were continuously monitoring the network for any further suspicious activity.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like a well-coordinated effort. And importantly, they kept their customers informed
yes.
throughout the process, which helps to maintain trust and transparency.
Communication is key in these situations.
Absolutely.
You don't want to leave people in the dark.
Right.
And fuel unnecessary panic.
Yeah. Now let's talk about those CompTIA exams that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The listener is interested in learning more, starting with the CompTIA A+ exam.
Okay.
What does that actually cover?
So the CompTIA A+ exam is it's a fantastic starting point for anyone interested in an IT career, including cybersecurity.
Okay.
It's divided into 2 exams.
Okay.
Core 1 and Core 2.
Okay.
Core 1 covers the essentials,
the
basics of operating systems like Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Understanding networking components, protocols, and services, and those fundamental security concepts that are so crucial for any IT role.
So it's like building that solid foundation of IT knowledge before you start specializing.
Exactly. Okay. So Core 2 then delves into more advanced topics, building upon that foundational knowledge.
Okay.
You'll cover in-depth operating systems knowledge, more complex networking concepts, including wireless and mobile networking, and security measures like malware protection and incident response.
Okay, so it sounds...
It's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, pretty comprehensive. Yeah. What about the CompTIA Security Plus exam?
Okay, so CompTIA Security Plus is specifically focused on cybersecurity.
Okay.
It covers a wide range of topics across 8 key domains.
8 domains?
8.
8.
That sounds pretty intense.
It is. But it's designed to give you a broad and deep understanding of cybersecurity principles and practices.
Okay.
So the first domain is threats, attacks, and vulnerabilities.
Okay.
This covers everything from, analyzing indicators of compromise, understanding different types of malware and attacks, to social engineering attacks and vulnerabilities and things like IoT and embedded devices.
So it's all about knowing your enemy.
Exactly. Understanding the different types of threats that are out there.
Yes.
Okay.
Then we have architecture and design.
Okay.
Which focuses on different environments.
Okay.
Like enterprise, cloud, and hybrid environments, as well as security policies and procedures and risk management and mitigation.
So it's not just about reacting to threats.
Right.
It's about building secure systems from the ground up.
Precisely. And then there's identity and access management.
Okay.
This is all about controlling who has access to what.
Okay.
Implementing access controls, account management practices, and authentication and authorization methods.
So you're like the digital bouncer.
Yes.
Making sure only the right people get in.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
Then we have security operations.
Okay.
Which covers security monitoring and incident response, logging and monitoring tools.
Okay.
And security information and event management.
So SEAM again.
SEAM again. It's all about the day-to-day operations of keeping systems secure, monitoring for threats, and responding quickly when incidents occur.
Okay, then we have cryptography.
Yes.
Which I'm guessing is all about codes and ciphers and all that.
You got it. It covers encryption methods and algorithms, public key infrastructure, and digital signatures and certificates. Essentially, all the ways that we protect data in transit and at rest.
Gotcha. Okay. Then there's network security, which I imagine is a whole world unto itself.
Oh, it is. This domain covers firewalls and intrusion detection prevention systems.
Okay.
VPNs and secure network architectures, and wireless and mobile security. Essentially everything you need to know to secure your network from attacks.
And finally, we have application security.
Yeah.
And compliance and operational security.
Yes. Application security covers securing web and mobile applications, while compliance and operational security focuses on regulatory compliance, physical security measures, and business continuity and disaster recovery.
Wow, that is a lot to cover.
Yes. It
sounds like the CompTIA Security Plus exam really does give you a very comprehensive overview of the whole cybersecurity landscape.
It does, and it's a highly respected certification in the industry.
Okay.
Passing the exam demonstrates a solid foundation of knowledge and can really boost your cybersecurity career prospects.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure the listener is feeling a little overwhelmed, but
Yeah.
also kind of excited by
Yeah.
all of this information.
Yeah.
Are there any resources you would recommend?
Absolutely. There are some fantastic books and study guides out there,
Okay.
specifically for the CompTIA Security Plus exam.
Okay.
One highly recommended book is CompTIA Security Plus SY0701 Certification Study Guide by Mike Chappell and David Seidel.
Okay.
It's the official study guide, so it's a great place to start.
And are there any other resources you'd recommend alongside that?
Definitely. Another excellent choice is CompTIA Security Plus Study Guide, Exam SY0601, also by Mike Chappell and David Seidel. This comprehensive guide covers all the exam topics and includes practice questions, which are crucial for testing your knowledge.
So you get like the solid explanation of the concepts and then a chance to put them into practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And if you're looking for like an all-in-one solution.
Oh, there's CompTIA Security Plus Certification Kit, Exam SY0701, again by Mike Chappell and David Seidel.
No.
This kit includes the study guide, practice tests, and even more resources to help you prepare.
Wow, that sounds like a comprehensive package for anyone who's serious about acing the exam.
Absolutely.
Any other option?
Oh, of course. For those who prefer a more concise approach, there's CompTIA Security Plus Certification All-in-One Exam Guide by, you guessed it, those same authors. This guide offers a complete overview of the exam topics and includes practice questions and labs to test your skills.
So there's a resource out there.
Yeah.
For every learning style. Excellent. Any final recommendations?
Absolutely. If you want to focus solely on practice tests, there's the CompTIA Security Plus Practice Tests by, you guessed it, Mike Chappell and David Seidel. This book is packed with practice questions to help you assess your readiness for the exam.
Awesome. Those all sound like really fantastic resources.
Yeah.
I'm sure our listener is feeling much more equipped
I hope so.
to start their cybersecurity journey.
It's an exciting field. And with the right preparation and resources, anyone can succeed.
All right, and on that note, we'll pause here.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll delve even deeper into this mentorship session and uncover even more practical advice and real-world insights, so don't go anywhere.
Tizu.
Welcome back to your cybersecurity deep dive. We're picking up right where we left off, analyzing that mentorship session. It's been a goldmine of information so far.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the mentor does a fantastic job of making these, these kind of complex topics accessible.
Yeah.
Especially when they use those clever analogies to explain things like network protocols.
Right. It's so much easier to grasp those concepts when you can kind of relate them to something familiar. So what stood out to you as like the most crucial pieces of advice for somebody who's aiming for a cybersecurity career?
So the mentor really emphasizes, that a strong foundation is key. It's tempting to jump straight into the flashy stuff, but mastering those IT fundamentals, like operating systems, networking, and basic security concepts, it's essential.
Yeah, it's like building a house. You can't just start decorating before you've got a solid foundation or the whole thing will crumble.
Exactly. And once you've got those basics down, the mentor stressed the importance of hands-on experience. Yeah. It's all well and good to learn the theory, but you need to get your hands dirty and put those skills to the test.
Yeah, that's where those internships and entry-level positions come in, right?
Yeah.
It's a chance to apply those puzzle-solving skills
to real-world scenarios, and learn from experienced professionals.
Precisely. And speaking of real-world skills, the mentor also talked about the importance of certifications.
Yeah.
Especially that CompTIA Security Plus certification.
Right. It's like that official stamp of approval that says, hey, this person has the knowledge and the skills to do the job, but I think you've got a unique perspective on certifications.
Okay.
You said before that, they're just the beginning.
Exactly. Certifications are a fantastic way to demonstrate your knowledge and commitment to the field.
Yeah.
But they're not the end goal, The real learning, it starts when you're actually working in the field, facing real-world challenges, and constantly adapting to new threats.
Yeah.
That's why continuous learning is so crucial in cybersecurity.
It's like a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
You've got to keep learning and evolving to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. The cybersecurity landscape, it is constantly changing, so you can't afford to rest on your laurels.
Now, I know we touched on the attack on American water earlier,
Yeah.
but I think it's worth revisiting because it provides some valuable insights into how security professionals respond to a real-world attack.
Yeah, totally. What are some of the key takeaways that you glean from that discussion?
First, it highlights the importance of having a clear and well-rehearsed incident response plan. When an attack happens, you don't want to be scrambling, trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
You need a playbook. That outlines the steps to take.
It's like having a fire drill.
Yeah.
You might not ever need it, but if a fire does break out, you're prepared.
Right.
You know exactly what to do to minimize the damage.
Exactly. And American Water's security team demonstrated the importance of swift action.
Yeah.
They didn't hesitate to isolate those compromised systems, which likely prevented the attack from spreading further.
Right. That's like performing emergency surgery on their network.
Yes.
To stop the bleeding and contain the damage.
Perfect analogy. And while they were doing that, they also activated their incident response plan, which, brought in all the right people and resources to manage the situation effectively.
Right. And let's not forget about those vulnerability scans we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Clearly, those are essential for identifying
it's so important.
and patching those weaknesses before the attackers can exploit them.
Absolutely. It's like having a regular checkup at the doctor.
Yeah.
It's much easier to prevent a major health issue if you catch those early warning signs.
Yeah, and speaking of early warning signs, I know the listener was curious about those tools, Splunk and Wireshark.
Mm-hmm.
How do they play into the whole incident response process?
So they're like the detective's toolkit, Splunk gives you that high-level view of what's happening across your network, like a security camera footage, while Wireshark allows you to zoom in and analyze the details of network traffic, like examining fingerprints left at a crime scene.
So Splunk helps you spot those suspicious patterns and anomalies. Yeah.
While Wireshark lets you dive deeper and figure out
exactly
what happened.
Precisely. And in a fast-moving situation like a cyber attack, having those tools at your disposal can make a huge difference.
Totally. Now, I know we touched on the shared responsibility model in cloud environments earlier.
Yes.
But I think it's worth revisiting because it's such a crucial concept for anyone who's working with cloud services.
Absolutely. It's easy to assume that the cloud provider handles all the security.
Right.
But that's not the case. It's a shared responsibility, and both parties need to understand their roles clearly.
Can you remind us who's responsible for what?
Sure. So the cloud service provider is like the landlord of a building.
Okay.
They're responsible for the physical security of the building itself, the infrastructure, and the basic utilities, but they're not responsible for what you do inside your apartment.
So the customer is responsible for securing their own data.
Yeah.
Their applications and everything they control
yes.
within that cloud environment. Exactly. It's like having a security system in your apartment.
Right.
The landlord provides the basic security for the building, but you're responsible for protecting your own belongings.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, based on everything we've learned from this mentorship session, what advice would you give our listener, as they embark on their own cybersecurity journey?
I'd say, first and foremost, focus on building a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Master those IT fundamentals and get comfortable with the core concepts. Then seek out hands-on experience, internships, personal projects, even volunteer work. Any opportunity to apply those skills and learn from experienced professionals.
Yeah.
And never stop learning. Cybersecurity is a constantly evolving field, so embrace that challenge and stay curious.
Those are great pieces of advice.
Thank you.
And remember, those CompTI study guides we discussed earlier are fantastic resources for building that knowledge base.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to connect with other people in the field, attend conferences, join online communities, and reach out to people you admire.
Yeah.
The cybersecurity community is it's incredibly welcoming and supportive.
Networking and mentorship are so valuable in any field, but especially in cybersecurity, where collaboration and knowledge sharing are so crucial.
I think that's a great note to end on for part 2.
Okay.
When we return for part 3, we'll dive into some of the more technical topics covered in the mentorship session, like network protocols and vulnerabilities. So stay tuned.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Welcome back to the final part of your cybersecurity deep dive. I'm ready to tackle some of those more technical topics we've been kind of dancing around, especially those mysterious network protocols.
Yes, it's time to decode the secret language of computers. Remember the mentor's analogy about, computers speaking different languages?
Yeah.
Well, network protocols are the grammar and the syntax that make those conversations possible.
Okay. I'm ready to brush up on my computer linguistics.
Right.
Where do we even begin? begin?
Let's start with the concept of layers. Network protocols are organized in layers, and the most common model is the OSI model.
OSI?
Yeah, the Open Systems Interconnection model.
Okay.
It has 7 layers.
7?
7, each with a specific function and its own set of protocols.
Okay, 7 layers. That sounds a bit like a complicated cake.
It is a bit like a cake, actually.
Yeah.
Each layer builds upon the one below it.
Okay.
At the very top, we have the application layer.
Okay.
This is where you interact with the network. Think web browsing with HTTP, sending emails with SMTP, or transferring files with FTP.
So the application layer is what we see and interact with
Yeah, as users.
as users. Gotcha.
Exactly. Below that is the transport layer,
Okay.
which ensures that data gets delivered reliably and in order between systems.
Okay.
This is where protocols like TCP and UDP operate.
So TCP and UDP are like the delivery trucks, making sure our data packages
Yes.
arrive at the right destination intact.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
What happens next?
Then we move down to the network layer, which is responsible for addressing and routing those data packets across the network.
Okay.
This is where the famous IP protocol comes in.
IP.
It's like the postal service of the internet, making sure our data gets to the right address.
Oh, okay. I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Yeah.
Each layer has its own specific job to do.
Yeah.
And they all work together to make sure our data
Yeah.
gets where it needs to go.
Precisely. We still have the data link layer, which handles error detection and correction, and the physical layer, which deals with the actual transmission of data over physical mediums, like cables or wireless signals.
Okay.
But for cybersecurity, those top 3 layers, application, transport, and network,
Yeah.
are the most crucial.
Gotcha. Now, what about that encapsulation thing
Oh, yeah.
that the mentor mentioned?
Encapsulation is key
Okay.
to understanding how data travels through the network.
Okay.
Remember the analogy of envelopes.
Yeah, I loved that visual.
Yeah.
It's like putting a letter inside an envelope and then putting that envelope inside another envelope.
Exactly. As data moves down through the layers, each layer adds its own header to the data, like adding an extra envelope with instructions.
Okay.
This creates a structured package with all the information each layer needs to do its job.
So by the time the data reaches the bottom layer and is sent across the network, it's like a Russian nesting doll of information.
That's a great way to put it. And on the receiving end, each layer unpacks the data, removing its header and passing it up to the next layer until it reaches the application layer and the user.
Okay, so I get how encapsulation works,
Mm-hmm.
but why is this so important for cybersecurity?
Okay, so understanding network protocols and encapsulation is crucial for several reasons.
Okay.
First, it allows security professionals to effectively monitor network traffic.
Okay.
By analyzing those data packets, they can spot suspicious activity, identify anomalies, and detect potential threats.
So it's like being a detective looking for clues
Yes,
hidden within those data packages.
exactly.
Yeah.
Second, it helps them secure transmissions.
Okay.
By knowing how data is packaged and transmitted, they can implement appropriate security measures, like encryption and authentication, to protect sensitive information from prying eyes.
It's like knowing how to build a strong safe
Yeah.
to protect your valuables.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And finally, understanding protocols is essential for troubleshooting network issues.
Okay.
When something goes wrong, knowing how data flows through the network helps pinpoint the source of the problem and resolve it quickly.
It's like having a blueprint of the network so you know exactly where to look
Yeah.
if something breaks down.
Now let's shift gears and talk about vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Remember, the mentor mentioned several common types.
Yeah, they talked about misconfigurations, unsecured APIs, outdated software, those scary zero-day vulnerabilities, weak credentials, and access control issues.
Yes.
It seems like there's a lot of ways that things can go wrong.
There are, and it's the cybersecurity professional's job to stay one step ahead of the attackers. Let's break down a few of those vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Misconfigurations are essentially mistakes in the settings of software or hardware
Okay.
that create security holes. It's like leaving a window open in your house. You're practically inviting trouble.
Then there are those unsecured APIs.
Yes.
I remember we talked about APIs earlier.
Yeah.
That those connections between applications.
Right. And if an API isn't properly secured, it can be a backdoor for attackers.
Okay.
Imagine building a drawbridge to your castle,
Yeah.
but forgetting to put a guard at the gate.
That's not a very secure castle.
No.
And outdated software
Oh, yes.
is a classic vulnerability.
It is. Using outdated software is like driving a car with bald tires and faulty brakes.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, you're going to have an accident.
And those zero-day vulnerabilities.
Oh, yeah.
You were saying those are the real nightmares.
They are. These are vulnerabilities that are unknown to the software vendor.
Right.
So there's no patch available yet. It's like playing a game where the rules are constantly changing, and you don't know what the next move will be.
Wow. So how do cybersecurity professionals even begin to deal with all of these vulnerabilities, it seems?
It is a lot.
Yeah, overwhelming.
It's a constant game of cat and mouse, but there are strategies and processes in place. Vulnerability management is a key part of cybersecurity. It's all about identifying, assessing, prioritizing, and remediating vulnerabilities to reduce risk.
So it's like a never-ending to-do list.
In a way, it is.
Cybersecurity professionals?
And the mentor outlined the steps involved in patching vulnerabilities.
Okay.
It starts with identification, using vulnerability scanners to find those weaknesses. Then comes prioritization.
Okay.
You can't fix everything at once, so you focus on the most critical vulnerabilities first.
So you're triaging those vulnerabilities,
Okay.
just like in an emergency room.
Exactly. Then you move on to remediation, applying those patches or updates provided by vendors to fix the vulnerabilities. And if a patch isn't available yet, you take steps to mitigate the risk, like putting up temporary barriers until a permanent solution is available.
It's a constant cycle
Yeah.
of identifying, assessing, patching, and monitoring.
It is. Cybersecurity is a dynamic field,
Yeah.
and security professionals have to be adaptable, resourceful, and constantly learning to stay ahead of the threats.
Wow, I think we've covered an incredible amount of information.
I have.
In this deep dive, I feel like I've gone from cybersecurity novice to having at least a decent grasp of the fundamentals.
That's great to hear.
So what's the most important piece of advice you would give to our listener as they continue down this path?
I would say never stop being curious.
Okay.
Cybersecurity is a field that rewards curiosity, continuous learning, and a passion for problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
Embrace those qualities, and you'll be well on your way to a successful and rewarding career.
That's fantastic advice. And remember, all those CompTIA study guides we talked about earlier
Yes.
are great resources for
Yeah.
building that knowledge base.
Definitely. Thank you for joining me on this cybersecurity deep dive.
Yeah, this was great.
I hope you've enjoyed the journey and feel inspired to keep exploring this exciting field.
Yeah, I think our listeners will for sure. And a huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then, stay curious, stay secure, and keep on diving deep.